Hi everyone, it's Jan from Jan Plans Things and welcome to my Plan With Me video for this week. I am still doing my Humphrey's Adventures month, and this week he's cosplaying as a wizard. Someone in my Instagram commented that I should do like a Hogwarts themed Humphrey, and because I got lazy and couldn't be bothered drawing the entire castle, I ended up just doing Humphrey on a broomstick, which I'm broomstick, not bloomstick, my goodness, on a broomstick because I thought that would be kind of cute anyway. I actually did a version similar to this a couple of months ago when I did my Kiki's Delivery Service theme. So I only realized this after, halfway through drawing it, so I have changed it up a little bit so it looks a little bit different. I have tried to integrate the little clouds that I've been doing throughout this month, and of course the gold stars. I also realized while I was doing this that I had actually screwed up a little bit. I have the broom passing over the front of his left leg, which really should not do. So, but I can't use whiteout. And I really should have known better because I had already done this in pencil beforehand, but I don't know, sometimes your hand does not do what the brain wants it to do and you make mistakes, and that's okay. It happens and you don't really notice it. But now that I've pointed it out to you, you will notice it, but that is that. I am outlining everything with my Sakura Microns this time around, mainly because I didn't want to skip any pages, because I do have to do that when I'm using my Pentel pocket brush pen. Although I reckon for a drawing like this, that would have been actually a lot better compared to the Sakura Micron to get that really feathery and variated line work effect. You also see on the left hand side of my LT 1917 notebook, you can kind of see the shadows on the page, and that is that's what ghosting looks like. So the previous week was the little aeroplane version, and you would have seen me paint that, and you can kind of see the shadows of it on the left hand side. I honestly don't mind the ghosting so much. I know it bothers a lot of people. Ghosting I can deal with, bleeding I cannot, which is why I've switched the pens over, just to kind of give it a little bit more long. I shouldn't have picked that word, I can't say it. Just to kind of give my book a little bit more longer longevity. There we go. Would you believe I'm actually a lecturer? It's embarrassing. Anyway, it's fine. So this week, I'm using my Agallo colours, Handmade watercolors. They've been a firm favourite on my in my journal and on my paintings over the past couple of months, but I'm giving them a little bit of a comeback this week. I'm doing my swatch project at the moment. It's taking me quite a bit of time to swatch up every single pigment that I have, and I'm up to the Agallo colours, and I just forgot how lovely they were, so I'm using them again this month. At the moment, the colour that I'm using is a Genuine Indigo. Genuine Indigo is not a light fast color. You can get a like synthetic version nowadays, which is light fast, but the one I'm using in my journal is the natural pigment, and you kind of see it like you see it in jeans basically as a dye. So the indigo color you can also achieve by mixing a nice bright blue, like a cerulean blue, with a burnt sienna color to get that little brown, or just with a little bit of ivory black. If you're mixing with black, it does get a little bit more muddy, so that's an option for you as well if you don't actually have an indigo color. Another similar one that could work pretty well is probably Payne's Grey, and depending on the company that does it, they sometimes mix it with blues as well. I was using an ivory black for the cloak. The main reason was after I had painted all the clouds indigo, I remembered that the last time I painted Humphrey in this outfit, he was wearing an indigo cloak, and I'm like, I can't actually paint that much indigo, so I'm like, okay, that's fine, I'll paint his cloak black because that's like a wizardy color, but then I realized he's also a grey cat. So that's why I actually painted him in the neutral tint from my Mijello mission instead of mixing the same black out of my Agallo set, mainly because I was lazy. That's the truth of it. And the other reason was I did want a slightly warmer tint to it compared to the black cloak to give it a little bit more contrast. If I had thought this through a little bit more, maybe I would have done maybe more of a sunsetty cloud instead of a blue cloud, but then it wouldn't have matched my previous pages, so decisions. For the dots, I'm dipping my paintbrush directly into the Indigo. Now, I did mention it's not light fast, but the other thing is because it's in my journal the entire time and I'm going to be closing the book anyway, I'm not too concerned. It's not like I'm going to be sticking this picture up against the window for all the paint to slowly fade away. So I wouldn't be too worried about it. I guess that's the other thing if you're using cheaper paints anyway. That being said, the Agallo paints aren't cheap. I've just made the decision to use the natural pigment, but a lot of the student grade paints aren't as light fast as the artist grade paints, so they'd fade anyway, but they're perfectly fine inside the journal. I'm using my Peppercon Arts metallic palette again. This is my dot card. I absolutely love these paints. They're like liquid metal, so I picked up a whole palette of these in the last restock, so I can't wait for those to come. I'm using the Brilliant Gold Gouache again from Holbein. I really like it because what happens is it's got like what looks like smashed gold leaf inside the paint, like little flecks of gold, and then when you actually mix this with other paints as well, it does this beautiful suspension and floats to the surface. And this is really great if you're doing washes, which you wouldn't be doing in a journal, but if you're using it for paint, that's like a really, really beautiful color. And it reacts very, very differently to, say, the Kolinsky palette, where the particles are actually quite large, so you don't get that. The Kolinsky palette, the particles are very small, so you don't get that that drift in the pigment. Now, you'll notice that in the top left-hand corner, I've been listing the materials I've been using, and I've been listing the colors, as well as the pigment color that they are. So if you're looking at a lot of your watercolor paints, you'll be able to see what pigments are in the paints. And that means that if you don't have the exact same colors that I'm using and you're a little bit confused, you can check the labels for your paints and see if you have anything similar, and you might be able to use those instead. The other thing is, a lot of these pigments are natural, therefore every single company has a slightly different look, and your let's say ultramarine blue from one company might not be as smooth as it is from another one. So although the pigment color will tell you whether or not it's similar, it might not be exactly the same, mainly because so much of it's natural, and if you're cutting a rock like hundreds of kilometers away from each other, they will look different. So that's just something to think about as well, and that's why a lot of people have a lot of brand loyalty to different watercolor makers, because some of them make, you know, your favorite blue or your favorite yellow. Like, I know that Daniel Smith makes my favorite gold. They used to make my favorite gold. It's been discontinued. They don't make it anymore, but like the quinacridone gold is absolutely beautiful in my opinion. I'm going through now because I finished a lot of the illustration. I realized it looked a little bit empty. So I'm going back and I'm doing my favorite cloud lining technique. I'm using the 00 size paintbrush from White Nights. And this is, when I was doing this, I realized that this is probably how I know that I've improved in my painting, because I could not imagine being able to paint thin, tight lines 18 months ago with whatever thickness brush. I just did not have the control before, and seeing myself do this so easily today, I was just like, wow, I really have improved. So it's just like the small things that you notice over time that really prove to you that practice does really help make perfect. Now, looking back at this design, I reckon it actually would make a pretty good front cover as well. It's pretty cute for that. But this time around, I'm doing a radial set theme that I quite like doing, and I just wanted to do something a bit different because the last few weeks I've been doing my graphics to the right hand side, the left hand side, so I haven't really done a dial type layout in a while, and I do like using those quite a bit. So I hope that as you've been watching my videos, you've kind of find the little tidbits about the pigments and the watercolors and the skills a little bit interesting. If you have any questions, as always, you should try and, you know, comment down below, because I do try and respond as much as I can. And yeah, so what I'm doing now is I'm just going through and filling in a little bit more dots. Sometimes you look at a picture and you're not quite sure if it works, but then you might start adding more and more, and then you're wondering whether or not the more you add, the worse it gets. That's what I was doing with this week's spread, but at some point you should stop, because actually it looks fine. You're just being a little bit rough on yourself. It's kind of like if you're baking a cake and you're whipping up cream, and then you're not sure, and you just keep whipping the cream until it becomes butter instead of fluffy cream, and then you're like, okay, I went a bit too far with that. It's the same thing with drawing. At some point you need to stop. And it's always a bit hard, because when it's like, oh, there's something not quite right, but then when you fill it all up, it looks perfectly fine, and you're like your own harshest critic. I have mentioned in the past that if you want to sign up to any Skillshare tutorials, I have a link in my description where you can get the first 2 months free, and basically you can get access to a whole bunch of fantastic video tutorials that I use quite a bit when I learnt how to edit my videos for the first time. So go to the link down below if you want 2 months free, and it's free to cancel afterwards if you don't find anything interesting for yourself. But I have been loving the service. So this is my month's weekly with my wizard Humphrey. He's a little bit, he should probably fly with his eyes open, right? It'd be better for him. But I hope you enjoyed that. I've enjoyed chatting with you guys, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys next week. Bye!